Hi everyone, William here with the Grand Duke Dmitri 1917 Diary series, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas in advance, all of you who celebrate the holiday, and of course if you're watching this in Russia, then you still have a little time left. It's, as I speak, it's the 23rd of December here. So in Russia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Christmas is celebrated on either the 6th or the 7th of January. Anyway, let's get going. The last section that we did, what dates were those? The 25th and 26th were the discussion of the state funeral of Sardar Asad Bakhtiar. Dmitri was not a participant, but an observer. He watched it from the balcony of the Imperial Bank of Persia overlooking Cannon Square. And then he had a strained evening with Lady Marling. All right, so today, a little bit of a warning in advance. You will hear some very typical European Western world disdain of Persian and Middle Eastern, kind of the idea of the sort of intrinsic superiority of anything European that was that colonial imperial mindset at that time. So, I'm not endorsing his views, but they are historically accurate. They're the views that he had, and they're not at all abnormal for that time period. All right, so we are going to be doing two diary entries today, the 27th and the 28th of October. So let's get started. Friday, 27th October. Early in the morning, Lady Marling and I went by automobile to pick up Firuz and went with him to the hunt. We took the Kazvin Road. It was supposed to be a gazelle hunt, but of course it had been organized by Persians, and therefore nothing came off. There were a few riders who fumbled in every direction trying to shoot from horseback. As a result, one gazelle was killed, but who and when nobody saw. I was placed in a position between trees and told that gazelles would come directly to me, but of course it was clear that nothing of the kind would occur because all the horses were gathered about 100 paces from me, and then an automobile arrived, lunch was prepared there, and to top off all the attractions, a huge camel caravan appeared between me and the alleged direction of the gazelles. We continued the hunt after lunch, but this time using dogs to hunt hares. And then one insane Persian, in a burst of excitement, shot at a hare which Taus, my dog, was only 2 steps behind. He missed the hare, but shot Taus, fortunately only hitting his ear. We dined at Edder's that evening. After dinner, we played bridge and left for home relatively early. Okay. Going on, Saturday the 28th October, I played tennis in the afternoon. The Marlings and I had lunch at the Yevrenos. In the evening, there was a huge dinner and dance on the premises of the Tehran Club on the occasion of blank. It was very lively and surprisingly well arranged. Only almost immediately after dinner, several of the Englishmen, young bank employees, blanked frightfully and raised a temporarily phenomenal ruckus. The dance was outstanding. The floor was very good, and what is rare in Persia, parquet. The music was balalaikas from the brigade, but as for me, my heart wasn't in it. The news from Petrograd gave me no peace. I was so terribly heartsick that I actually almost cried, especially when the balalaika players played old dear tunes like Memories of Gatchina or Waltz of the Faun. It went straight to my heart, and I have to give them credit. They were not at all bad. But now, of course, the most important thing is what is going on in Russia, what Laming's situation is, and what Papa's situation is. Okay, lots going on in these two diary entries. Let's start with the man who Lady Marling and Dmitri actually pick up in an automobile that must either have belonged to the Marlings personally or to the legation. And this was a very interesting person, very important person, and would continue to be in Persian history, Iranian history. He was only 2 years older than Dmitri. He was Maria's age, Dmitri's sister Maria's age, but already very important. So I have his name down as Mirza Firuz Nosrat-ed-Dowleh, but I've seen lots of different renderings of that. Phonetically, because of the issue of transliteration between languages. So Firuz, I think, was his given name. Mirza means prince. He was a member of the Qajar royal dynasty. And he was, a sophisticated man, educated in Beirut and in Paris, so French-speaking. And at that time, he was Minister of Justice, despite being what? I guess that would make him probably no more than 29 then. Let's see, Dmitri was 26, so he would have been 28 or so. And he was already Minister of Justice and a member of the so-called government triumvirate, meaning the three people who were basically running the government on behalf of the Shah. So he was and would be an important statesman. He would be assassinated in 1936. All right, so an impressive person. Now the dog, I wonder about. Dmitri always had dogs. That was always important to him, to get a dog as quickly as he could when he was, forced to live somewhere new in exile. In this instance, however, I'm pretty sure, if I remember Grand Duchess Maria's memoirs, that his dog had been left behind, that he hadn't taken his dog with him into exile when he was sent to the Persian front. So this dog was either actually his, but acquired in Persia, or it was on loan to him for the hunting expedition. So it's unclear. He says it's his dog, but that could land either way. So the name, I guess, the best guess of perplexity, AI, is that it's from a Persian word that means peacock, although that would be an odd name to give a dog. Well, why not? But that's just speculation. Okay. So moving on from that, I tip my hat to Dmitri on his wry sense of humor with them putting him at this stand that's supposed to be, an excellent stand. The gazelles will be running right in his direction, and then all these other things happen. It's pretty funny, actually, and the way he puts it is quite droll. About here he is waiting for the gazelles, but all the horses are gathered only a few paces from him, and then a car comes, they start to make lunch, and then a huge camel caravan, as he says, appeared between me and the alleged direction of the gazelle. So, maybe part of his sort of prejudiced language here is, owing to the fact that he was so frustrated by that. All right, so then he's all compliments at this dance at the Tehran club, which surprises me because he tends to be a little sniffy about things, but he thinks the floor is great, the band, the balalaika orchestra does a good job, and the dancing is good, and the only thing, that is problematic is these young bank clerks who are clearly drunk and raising a ruckus. That's maybe a word I shouldn't use because it's fairly vernacular, I think. So for non-native English speakers, what would you say a ruckus is? Just disorderly behavior, loud disorderly behavior. And Dmitri has never liked that. Even as an adolescent, he didn't like that. You might remember from the 1906, 1907 diaries that whenever there were big groups of kids or misbehaving children or anything like that, Dmitri just did not like it. And I think, that makes sense, because on the one hand, his father was a person who was very inclined toward a quiet, peaceful existence. And Grand Duke Sergei, so both the men that had raised him, Grand Duke Sergei wanted, a very orderly environment. So that was what Dmitri was used to, and what his inclination was, which is kind of, ironic considering how he would be considered a wild playboy type. And he had his wild side, we know that. But anyway, in this instance, things were certainly made worse by the fact that this is the point where he finds out about the Bolshevik Revolution. And so if you can imagine being blindsided by that and then going off to a party, and yes, you're going to feel, like I said, I'm surprised that he was so complimentary about the things around him, aside from the bank clerks, because that would have been devastating to be in that environment after what you've just found out. The waltzes, you can listen to these on YouTube. I have, and I really like both of them. The composer was a man named Vasily Vasilyevich Andreev, whose dates were 1861 to 1918, so at that time he was still alive. And yeah, the two waltzes, Memories of Gatchina and Waltz of the Faun, were clearly ones that Dmitri would have heard at social gatherings. And so, very nostalgic for him. And as I said, to be played, for those of all things, to be played on that evening when he'd found out about the Bolshevik takeover, he says he almost cried. It certainly would have been understandable if he had cried, but, stiff upper lip and all that. I wonder if people realized how hard it was for him being there, or if he was able to sort of fake it. Okay, so what do we have next time? Well, information failure is what we have next time. So we're jumping ahead to the next long diary entry of the 7th of November before we go back with Dmitri and fill in those individual days. And what he's going to be writing about in that long entry to begin with is just how difficult it is to sort the real news from the rumors that are coming from Petrograd and Moscow, and how to make sense of anything when all the news that you get is pretty suspect. So a very interesting topic. Those of you who prefer the more serious content about current events and what's going on over Dmitri's personal life, this will be, real meaty stuff for you. So, yeah, I hope to see you all when we resume, and it will probably be a couple days since Christmas Eve and Christmas, or the next 2 days. So, but yeah, we will resume soon. So, all right, bye.